Good evening, I'm Kevin Christie.
And I'm Nancy Cox. Thank you for joining us at 6. At least 4 people, including a mother and baby, have been killed in Hurricane Florence.
This dangerous storm made landfall in the Carolinas this morning, and rain that may be measured in feet, not inches, could lead to flooding throughout the region. In the river town of New Bern, North Carolina, hundreds of people needed water rescues. More than 500,000 people in the region are already without power and could be in the dark for days, if not weeks.
That number is rising even as we speak. Utility crews from all over the country are standing by to restore power when it's safe for them to be out.
Florence has been downgraded now, though, to a tropical storm.
Many North Carolina towns are experiencing extreme flooding since Florence made landfall, and hundreds of rescues have already been made.
Spotted this morning from a live feed on the Today Show was a Lexington native who is with the North Carolina National Guard. Alexa Helwig talked to him on the phone about the emotional rescues he's made in the past 2 days, and she continues our Tracking Florence coverage.
Absolutely. Y'all have a good day, okay?
Fearless is one of the strongest words that can describe Lexington native Jared Gowans, as well as every other first responder battling the elements of Florence. Gowans left behind his own family on Tuesday to help rescue hundreds of other families.
All right, I got you from here.
During a live feed on the Today Show this morning, we recognized him right away. This video shows him lifting an elderly woman to safety in New Bern, North Carolina.
This is what we train up to do, is to be able to react to situations like this that's currently going on, and it just makes us happy at the end of the day whenever we know how many people we've got.
Gowans reported to his armory on Wednesday and started making rescues Thursday. He recalls a tearful moment with his team, which continues to make him realize why he chose this career.
A lot of us last night, we had an elderly lady that pretty much everybody had to pick up and carry and put into a vehicle. Of course, you know, she gave me a hug and a kiss on the cheek and said, how grateful she was.
As of this morning, Gowans has helped make nearly 50 rescues. He tells us his team remains in good spirits and they'll keep working until they're told to stop. Covering the news, Alexa Helwig, LEX 18 News.
Gowans tells us he'll be moving to another North Carolina location to help a fire department as they deal with Florence.
And even though Florence has been down, weakened to a tropical storm, still the worst is not over, as more torrential rain, the potential for catastrophic flooding, and very high storm surges are still expected across the Carolinas. Again, Florence now down to a tropical storm with sustained winds of 70 miles per hour, as it's only moved about 50 miles since landfall first thing this morning, still sitting within 50 miles of Wilmington, close to where it made landfall, and the movement just very slow, only to the west at 3 miles per hour. And that's just going to agitate things as we continue throughout the course of the weekend, as still Florence is expected to move at a snail's pace through South Carolina. Meanwhile, back here at home, we couldn't have asked for a nicer late summer day. Seeing just a few puffy clouds from our Kentucky One Health weather bug camera on EKU's campus. No rain to speak of across central and eastern Kentucky, and with all that sunshine, it warmed up in a hurry once again this afternoon as temperatures are running in the mid to upper 80s at this hour. And we're going to keep things on the warm side this evening, looking good for Lakeside Live, not just tonight, but also tomorrow. And we'll keep temperatures in the 80s and things will stay dry, but eventually Florence will be tracking into the bluegrass. I'll show you where and just how much rain we could pick up coming up in your complete Storm Tracker forecast.
Thank you, Jill. We'll see you then.
Some football teams in central Kentucky had to make some schedule changes because of Florence.
Yeah, the Georgetown College football team is playing St. Andrews University from North Carolina tonight. LEX 18's Connor McHugh is live at Georgetown College with more about the reason for that scheduling change.
Well, we just got a chance to speak with the coach of that away team right before the game, and he says his players are here, they are ready to play the game, but he'd be lying if he said they were not thinking of their families back home in North Carolina. He says in the trip to get here, it's been an emotional ride. There were a number of phone calls home on the bus ride over here, and he said there were even some tears on the trip as Hurricane Florence made it closer to their hometown. Now, this university, St. Andrews University, is located near Laurinburg, North Carolina, which is projected to see strong winds and heavy rain from the hurricane. Earlier this week, Georgetown College College agreed to move the Saturday night game to tonight so the team could safely get out of town before that hurricane made landfall. Now, moving the game tonight did cause a minor inconvenience for Scott County High School, as they were scheduled to play in the stadium tonight. Instead, they played last night, and St. Andrews' coach says his staff is already watching those conditions closely and working on a plan to get back home.
There's a little window, it looks like, that we can slide back to North Carolina tomorrow. So if we time it up right, I think we're going to hit some rain, but I think the heavy winds that I'm concerned about will be in the South Carolina, and then hopefully we can slide in. We'll come in on the top end, we'll add another hour to our trip, but instead of coming at the bottom of the state through Charlotte, we'll come in on the top end and kind of slide down that way.
When I asked the coach what he and his players expect to go home to, he used Hurricane Matthew 2 years ago as just an example. He says when that came through town, there was dramatic flooding in the interstate, even had to be shut down for more than a week. We're covering the news live in Scott County from the LEX 18 Mobile Newsroom. Back to you.
And they'll have a lot on their minds as they play tonight. 3 nurses from the Fayette County Health Department are going to help victims of Hurricane Florence. The Kentucky Department for Public Health is sending 10 public health nurses and 2 administrative staff members from several Kentucky health departments to help impacted areas of North Carolina. They'll be working in shelters where many families have been forced to move for their own safety. The deployment is expected to last about 2 weeks.
I'd say the most important skill that we'll need to bring there is triage, is figuring out which people are the sickest and need help immediately, that there'll be a lot of people there that will be in distress, and oftentimes the person that is calling for the most attention may not be the person that needs the most attention.
The 3 Fayette County Health Department nurses could leave as early as Sunday if called.
Beginning next week, you can help the people affected by Hurricane Florence. LEX 18, Cumulus Radio, and the Salvation Army are teaming up in a relief effort for the hurricane victims. Starting Monday at noon, you can drop off financial donations in the parking lot of Fayette Mall next to PNC Bank. All the donations will be taken to the victims. Now, we'll only be able to take monetary donations, cash or checks, and we'll also be broadcasting live during our newscasts on Monday. In other news, it's been almost a week since Bryce Combs disappeared in Rowan County's Triplet Creek during a flood.
But officials haven't given up hope of finding his body. LEX 18's Michael Burke has the latest from today's recovery effort.
No one here is giving up hope.
Multiple crews out today, still trying to locate and bring this loved one back to his family.
6 days ago, officials were told that 9-year-old Bryce Combs was swept away by the raging floodwaters of Triplet Creek. It's 13 miles long and spills into the Licking River. It's been a nonstop effort ever since to locate Bryce, and it has involved dogs and crews from multiple agencies, including several from out of state. Today, they all came back to ground zero.
Triplet Creek broke over into this wetland area and flooded this pond.
And they spent hours scouring its bottom, and community members continue to walk the creek's banks, hoping for any sign.
Well, we're just out here trying to do our best to find him.
Even Mercy, a top cadaver dog from West Virginia, was brought in, proving it's not just Rowan County that has answered the call in this search for Bryce.
We've got a fire department assisting us today from Alexandria, which is in northern Kentucky. So it ain't just a community, it's regionally people have turned out to help us today.
The number of people who have been or who are helping is believed to be in the thousands. And not one of them has put a timetable on this.
It's the best we can do until that kid's found.
Covering the news in Rowan County, Michael Burke, LEX 18 News.
The mayor of Moorhead says morale remains high and they've been overwhelmed by support from neighboring counties and states. For the latest on Florence, head to our website, lex18.com, and you can get that same information on the go. Download our free LEX 18 News app.
Also tonight, Northern Kentucky health officials say there have been 3 human cases of West Nile virus there over the summer. The health department says all the cases have been reported since July. That agency serves people in Boone, Campbell, Grant, and Kenton counties.
Lexington police are asking for your help identifying a group of people who flipped a car last weekend after UK defeated Florida in football. It happened last Saturday, where a large crowd gathered on State Street following UK breaking the 32-year-old losing streak to the Gators. During the celebration, several people turned over a white Volvo that was parked on the street, totaling the car. Anyone with information about this investigation, or if you have more photos and video of the crime, you're asked to call Lexington Police.
The Kentucky Personnel Board has voted to investigate Secretary of State Allison Lundergan Grimes' use of the state's voter registration database. The Kentucky State Board of Elections executive director says Grimes and her office have been using that database to look up the political party affiliation of current as well as potential employees. Jared Daring says a person who worked for Grimes pressured him to hire someone who was a registered Democrat instead of someone who was a registered Republican. An attorney for the State Board of Elections says there's no evidence the board hired employees based on political affiliations.
Now to an LEX 18 News update. The Jessamine County Sheriff's Office ruled a death investigation a homicide after discovering a man's body in a creek. A neighbor found the body yesterday on Pekin Lane in Wilmore. The deputy coroner says the body had likely been there for several days. The coroner says they aren't sure of his identity, but only that he was Hispanic. A Scott County deputy is still in the hospital after being critically injured in a shooting.
He's getting support from a lot of people, including some first graders. We have that story when LEX 18 News at 6 returns.